You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 218 of the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. Now, today on the show, we'll mostly be talking sheep and a bit of beef, maybe. And I'm meeting Matt Blyth, who is livestock advisor and has many years of experience managing sheep. Born and bred in Lincolnshire, Matt did a course at Northumberland College, specialising in sheep and beef, and then went on to work with a number of sheep flocks, from assisting a shepherd on an 1,800 ewe flock in Hampshire to running a 540 ewe flock near Basingstoke, to running a flock for 15 years in West Sussex. Further, in 2021, he began a Nuffield farming scholarship evaluating the potential cost benefits of electronic data recording for UK sheep and beef farms. Matt, welcome to Meet the Farmers. Thanks for coming on. You're sitting in a cab in a field at the moment. How are things?
Yeah, all right, thank you. It looks like now we started this, it's going to try and rain. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, quite an honour to get asked to be part of it.
Well, it's great to have you on, and looking forward to especially finding out more about your Nuffield. But tell us about your advisor role, first of all, in terms of the kinds of farms that you're working with and what your clients are looking for.
I got to say, I was managing diddling farms, and when I took over managing it 15 years ago, I started using data. So I started collecting information on the sheep flock, using EID before it was mandatory, and to work out what's going on. And I've kind of took that on to the next level after I left working there. And I work with farms literally all over the country. So I can work with farms down here in West Sussex, Kent, Cornwall, up to working with Morden up in Scotland. So I can be from the breadth and length of the country. One farmer's got 16 sheep. One farmer's, I was on the other day doing some advisory work, got 5,000. So it ranges from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, so you really are doing the full range. I take it, are you spending quite a lot of time on the road then?
I'm spending a lot of time on the road, more than I ever planned to, but Zoom's making it a lot easier. Once I get established with farms, once the farmers understand how to use the technology, it seems to be the biggest thing is training. Once they're, I wouldn't say trained, but once they understand how to make things easier for themselves, a lot more of it becomes remote to sorting problems out, analysing data, bits and pieces. So, but yeah, the first year seems to be working with somebody for the first time, seems to be at least 2 or 3 visits a year to get them on the right track.
So you're in Hampshire specifically at the moment. You grew up in Lincolnshire. Are you from a farming background? I couldn't find this out.
No, traditional farming background, no, I'm not. I'm from the Fens in Lincolnshire. I still don't really know the story, but my mum somehow got given a house at cheap rent when she got married because my grandfather worked on a big arable farm. I'm not quite sure how that all come together, but we're talking 60, 70 years ago. So I grew up on a farm, arable farm, vegetables, potatoes, proper Lincolnshire Fen farm, but they had 500 sheep.
All right.
And I seem to drag from being 9, not skiving off school, but skiving off every time they were working sheep anywhere near the house, which was on the corner of the farm, and end up helping the shepherd and getting took back at the end of the day once we'd done the job. There was actually a shepherd and a herdsman. They had cattle there as well. They had a dairy farm in Norfolk, and the cattle, and they had pedigree Charolais as well at the time when I don't know when they disappeared, but before I was 16 they seemed to disappear. But so there was a head stockman, herdsman, I think that's the best way of describing him. And yeah, he was an Irishman, if I remember rightly. He didn't really have an Irish accent, remember, but I think he was from Ireland. He was fair but pretty hard taskmaster. If you're going to help us, you've got to get your hands dirty, you've got to do this, that and the other. But he would pick you up. If it was raining and you were biking home from school, he would pick you up on your bike up and take you home, sort of thing. So it was fair in some respects.
Yeah. And you went through school. When did you know that farming, sort of agriculture broadly, life was the one that you wanted?
Probably in my early teens, probably 11, 12. As you know, people can't see, but people probably come across me. I wear coloured glasses because I got bad dyslexia. I have problems with reading and writing, and quite early on in secondary school, I was diagnosed before I went to secondary school of having dyslexia, and quite early on in secondary school, they pulled me out of mainstream education. I was really lucky. The school had a dedicated educational block for dyslexic people, so I was pulled out of mainstream schools. Kept doing bits and pieces, English, math, science, but I was pulled out and taught to read and write again. Okay. So 11, 12, literally. And the only way they could actually get me to, I won't say learn, because I was very keen on learning, I think, but to keep my interest was they discovered quickly giving me books on sheep was the easiest way to actually keep me, to actually make me develop. I started off going to the Lincolnshire Agricultural College and did 2 years of general agriculture. A little bit pressure from mum and dad, a little bit of pressure from the shepherd and stockman that was there, as in go and learn a bit of everything before you specialise. Make sure it's what you want to do. So I did a national certificate. I did a FDA, a first diploma in agriculture, I think it was called, to start with, a BTEC course. Then the following year I did an NCA, a National Certificate in Agriculture. Then I had a year off in the north of Lincolnshire, and I think that's where the information started coming in. Then went up to Kirkley Hall in Northumberland to specialise in sheep and beef management.
Okay, and yeah, we say specialise, but it's like, so what does that actually look like on the ground? So
literally on the ground, literally on the ground, that's all we studied. We studied sheep and beef. We didn't study anything else, nothing at all. So we were literally being taught from, part of the kit package was take a collie dog with you that was 9 months to 18 months old, and every Monday afternoon we had sheepdog training lessons.
Right.
We were taught how to strip a handpiece down, rebuild it, shear sheep, get your certificates in that, your dipping safety. We used to go out doing a lot of contracting, suppose you would say it these days, go off onto other people's farms, pre-foot and mouth and bits and pieces. Sheep used to come into the college. They had a full international shearing setup, and we'd have Arctics drop off sheep, and we'd spend all day shearing them.
Wow, showing my ignorance. Do those kinds of courses, are they running now?
No, they're all gone, unfortunately. I don't know what happened, and it's one of my bugbears is that flashy tractors, flashy technology, tractor just drove by me now, young lad on it. That technology, that thing attracts people. So I think the livestock side sometimes gets a hard sell, especially in colleges.
Yeah. So you had your time up there. You then came down south again.
I came back to Lincolnshire after being in Northumberland. I came back to the farm I had a year out on, which was a pedigree Suffolk farm and pedigree Lincoln and South Devon cattle. They also had arable, family farm, and they were all signet recorded. They were quite advanced looking back, for a 65-year-old man and 2 sons that run it. They were very advanced. Yeah, interesting place to work. Family, working on a family farm, a lot of arguments.
No, never.
But I think it gave me a good grounding for asking questions. Why are we keeping this ram? Why we keep selling? How do we get them to grow better? How do we do this, that, and the other? And looking at that information, and I think the way my brain's wired out, people might say with my dyslexia, actually that grasp me. How can we improve things by using information to select or change, or if we change that, what's the effect? And that time we were weighing, looking back now with that EID and bits of paper and notebooks, what information they were capturing, what they were doing was, farms these days are not collecting that much information, and we're talking 27 years ago.
Amazing. And how are they using that information? How much the cynic sometimes says, isn't it, sort of how much of it is really useful? Yeah, and I got to say they were using it to the best of their ability at the time. They knew
it was calcified Cornish seaweed, and I still remember it to this day. We drilled a field in front of the boss's house, boss's bungalow, with grass. God knows what sort of grasses it was, but it was a good seed mix, I would imagine, knowing them. And we put calcified Cornish seaweed on a funny angle across the field to see what the difference was. And they measured it and worked out that it grew 2 weeks earlier in the spring and grew 2 weeks longer in the autumn by putting one dose of this on across the field. And they were just collecting snippets of information like that and knowing that actually that was making a difference. That was improving this, improving that, extending the seasons. I got to admit they were using the bag a lot, but in them days everybody was, But they were working out what was going to change their business. CT scanning, 27 years ago, taking sheep up to Edinburgh to put into CT scanners would have been reasonably new.
That sort of way of thinking, I suppose, you then took that forwards with you.
Yeah, took it forwards after being there for another year. So I did in and out of college. I did 3.5 years for them. Then came down to the south into Hampshire, went to Chilbolton Down Farm, where the wrapper electric fencing system was invented. So
right, okay.
So I went and worked there for them when they had sheep. No longer have sheep no more. But yeah, quite a prestigious place in the 80s. It was quite leading its way with ADAS at the time, doing trials and bits and pieces. So it's quite in its day, quite a prestige place. I did 2.5 years in an apprenticeship there. Then it was time to stretch my legs and see if I could do it on my own. Met a woman like we all do, and a job came up not that far away with 600 sheep and arable, and I took that, and I did another 5 years there. Then got asked to come and work at Diddling Farms, and after 18 months ended up running the whole business.
This episode is being supported by our primary sponsor, Howden Rural, which is the new name for A-Plan Rural. The Howden team shares my passion for giving a voice to farmers, and we are both driven to raise the profile of farming voices to a wider audience. Howden Rural do a lot of work on social media themselves, sharing farming accounts and farming stories. They have a rural community blog which shares farmers' experiences, and they also support a growing number of initiatives that champion UK farmers, including this podcast. So a big thank you to Howden Rural for supporting Meet the Farmers. And another question which sort of this leads on to, I suppose, is there's quite a lot of talk at the moment in ag of advancements within each sector. Certainly, if you're moving from role to role, what advice would you give to someone who's ambitious in a particular sector and is looking to sort of like to carve a career path, I suppose? How do you look for that next opportunity? What is it that makes an opportunity grab you and think, yeah, this is going to move me to that next stage?
I'm not sure really, because I would say through my career I've been lucky. Opportunities have, I would say, found me, but they've kind of come along. Like being at Diddling, it was called Woolbean Farms at the time. It had a name change when the owner died and the new owner took over. But at that farm, we were struggling with lambs dying in September. So this time of year, lambs dying, loads of them. We're talking big numbers. And I was blaming it on Pastorella. Vaccines, in my eyes, wasn't working. So I don't know who it would have been at the time, but MSD, as they are now, whatever they were called, whatever it was 20 years ago, brought on a consultant onto the farm to help us work out what's going on. They didn't bring their own vets, they brought on a consultant. I met her, she wasn't taking any new clients on at the time. She did a report, told us what she believed was going wrong. Again, worm resistance. That's what she started to think. We'd got feeding issues in the buildings at lambing time. We'd got this, that, and she highlighted a few things. A year later, the owner died, and new owner came, and I took over that role. We went back to her, and she decided that I was worth a punt to help, even though she was taking no more clients on. And she saw something in me. 15 years on, well, probably more than that, probably nearly 20 years on, we're still communicating on a weekly basis, working with each other. So I don't know, but I think if you're going back to your question, you just have to do the best to your ability and just, I wouldn't say go the extra mile, but just show interest and people in the industry get to hear about that, and people will come looking for you, especially in the farming world. If you're showing yourself off, neat, respectable, putting yourself out there a little bit, going to events, learning, people will come and find you.
Yeah, amazing. Let's broaden this out and sort of focus on the sheep sector generally at the moment. Challenges. Your start of a 10. Where do you start?
Where do you start? One, we haven't got enough people in the industry. So there's, especially in this part of the world, finding shepherds jobs are there. The shepherds are not. We got some really good young women coming in at the moment. Some really good young women coming in, which is really nice to see. And I've been working with one or two of them lately. And they are open-minded and looking really good for the industry. The obvious one, drug resistance, anthelmintic resistance is an ongoing mission. We need to learn more, really do. I think, I think AHDB have gone through a interesting time after the vote and bits and pieces, but we need them and research places like that to step up and help the industry work out what to do. Independent trials is one of the biggest challenges we've got, is getting some independent information out there. And the other big one is sheep scab. Sheep scab is not going away quickly, and that is giving, unseen sheep scab is probably giving a lot of people a lot of headaches they don't know about.
But I mean, opportunities for new entrants, would you say it's for the right person? There's a lot of opportunities still?
It depends how you class a new entrant, because I've got somebody I'm doing a little bit of work with who's a new entrant trying to build a flock. There is opportunities there, especially this part of the world, Hampshire, West Sussex. There's free or cheap grazing everywhere. I think there's great opportunities, but there's even better opportunities for some of these people to become shepherds like I did. These days there's good salaries with a house and it's guaranteed a wage. Do we need to own a flock? And this is one of the things that I learnt rather rapidly, compared to the tractor drivers who get told when to spray a field by an agronomist, what to put in the ground or when to put the fertilizer on, this, that. The shepherd or the herdsman actually goes to market, chooses that bull, that ram, chooses them females, makes the decision of when tupping time is, makes them decisions. They actually can change a lot more in that business than what somebody can do sat on a flash tractor.
Let's turn to your Nuffield. You're looking at electronic data recording, and I suppose the influence of this goes right the way back, actually knowing some of your story now, right the way back to that data that you were recording on that farm in Lincolnshire. But so EIDs now, what were the questions that you initially wanted to answer? Why, of all the things you could have focused on, why was this the thing?
I think the thing is, it's always got me that farmers, especially the sheep, and with cattle coming to have EID any time, it's supposed to be years ago, but it's coming rapidly now. The consultation's out and bits and pieces, so it'll be here in the next 18 months. A lot of farmers just put that tag in their ear when that lamb goes on the lorry. Okay, if they're lucky, they might get, if it goes to an abattoir, they might get the kill weight and the grade back. But I've just spent 70p to get that. How can I use that tag to actually change and improve my business? Is it possible and is it worthwhile? Because all I've been told by a lot of other farmers, it's uncost effective collecting data. And I've never felt that. I've always felt doing it on farm. Okay, it might have took me, definitely did to start with, when we first started with it, before it was mandatory, some of the technology looking back was pretty backwards. If you find some of the pictures on the internet of how we had manual weigh crates set up with panel readers with sellotape holding them on and bits and pieces and this, that and the other, we've come on a long way, but can we make that information change a business? We know it does in the arable sector. We know that controlled traffic farming, we know that, all tractors these days have Daleks on top of them so they can drive themselves straightly and bits and pieces. Why why can't the sheep sector follow the pig sector, the poultry sector? Why can't we use information to make informed business decisions? And is there a cost benefit to doing it? So that's always been in the back of my head. And I've always believed, you ask most farmers, they go, yes, it's got to, but where do we start? And that's really what my Nuffield started to trigger, and COVID made me apply for it. I think I had one more attempt if I didn't get this Nuffield scholarship. I didn't dream of getting it at all. I still don't believe I'm a Nuffield right mould for a Nuffield scholar. They saw something in me that I definitely don't see in myself. I'll admit that till the cows come home. I do feel very much like an imposter in there, but it's always intrigued me. Why can't people see what I've seen through my career? I've not always understood what we're doing and why we're doing it, but I've always learnt to move forward. I was taught, quite a few years ago, to measure grass at lambing time, and we were looking for the fields that the most advanced to put ewes and lambs out on. So we used to measure grass then, but we didn't do a lot of anything else with it. But as it's gone through my career, measuring grass now is a staple thing. The farmer one today, that's part of my trip round for him, will be measure all the grass, do a feed budget, work out where we are. Can we afford to finish these lambs off grass? Have we got enough stubble turnips when we're going to need them? All them equations. But they've been drilled into me looking back for quite a few years. And why can't other farmers see some of this? And what are other farms doing? New Zealand, Australia, what are they doing? Because we put them on pedestals. I don't believe they should be on pedestals, but most farmers do. So what are they doing? Especially seeing New Zealand, Gallagher are based down there, where we get our weighing systems from. Data Miles, True Test are based down there. How are they using this technology? They're not compulsory EID in sheep. They are in cattle, but they're not in sheep. So why are they inventing the technology?
So I assume that Australia and New Zealand were on your list. Anywhere else in the world that you wanted to go to?
Ireland, because they pay farmers to attend events. So that was an interesting one. And I ended up going to Norway, which was a bit of a curveball. I got invited to go there with Morden with one of their projects. I spent a week with scientists and people from other parts of the world looking at technology within the sheep and goat industry, which was really, really interesting. Some of the stuff they do and how they use it. Small farms. Now, if you've got 300 sheep, you're a big farmer out there.
Were you impacted by COVID at all?
Massively. COVID year of 2021, we couldn't travel. But I actually think that was a positive side, because I've done a hell of a lot of Zoom meetings, and with countries that I wouldn't have even dreamed of going to.
Okay.
So, Canada, I wish I could get out to Canada, and I will do one day. They've got some really interesting stuff coming along. They can follow, they say they can follow on some things. It's cattle they're doing it with, but the sheep are coming along. They can tell you how much of all the ear tags of the cattle which are in that kilo of mince. So they can follow them animals through and tell you what that kilo of mince is made up of, them amount of ear tag numbers and how much of each animal. And when you go into the supermarkets, this is what they're trying to get to, is you can scan the barcode with your phone and rate your eating experience of that steak by using smiley faces. And if the farmer keeps getting smiley faces, you get a premium at the end of the quarter, a bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, this is what they're trying to get to. And the next stage is if that farmer, if they got a glut of animals coming into an abattoir, they'll only buy from the farms that have smiley faces.
Are there any other parts of the world that are interested in doing that?
Yeah. New Zealand are as well. I talked to one manufacturer in New Zealand, and they are looking into the principle of doing it as well.
Okay, because the other side of that, which is, of course, we speak a lot about bringing consumers and farmers closer together, don't we? But there's actually an example where you've got a direct impact on your bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an organisation like, well, I wouldn't say AHDB, but they're a very much along that line. It's farmer cooperative organisation that are building it. It's not that it's out there. I don't know how to describe the organisation, but yeah, it's a province that are building it with farmers and educational support and bits and pieces. It's not actually a supermarket building it, but a supermarket are looking at buying it.
Nuffield, of course, is it's about the learnings of what you're studying, but of course, it's all about personal growth as well, isn't it? So, I mean, how has it impacted on you on more of a personal level?
Personal level, but first personal level, it's been a strain on the family, as most people know. Spending a lot of time away.
Yeah.
I think that was not an unseen, should have been seen, but at the time, I think 6 weeks away at one point was a bit of a strain on everybody. But yeah, we got through that. My development, it's opened my eyes, and I've met people that I would never dreamed of meeting. I think I've still got a lot to come from it. I think I'm not even at the tip of the peak yet. Yeah, get me presented in November, and hopefully I'm near the top of the peak. But the experience, I don't think you could buy it. That fact of meeting people, your own year group, people from around the world, the CSC. Unfortunately, ours was in England.
Yeah, of course.
But meeting scholars from America, talking to them, I don't think you could ever buy that. I really don't. I think if you try to build that network yourself, one, you couldn't do it, but two, half the people I met at that CSC, there's 100 and some odd others there, I wouldn't have even dreamed of talking to them or emailing them before that.
So you're presenting at the conference in November. Where, I mean, how many presentations are there going to be? There's dozens, aren't there?
Absolutely dozens, because I think we'll go back to definitely 2020, if not even 2019. Some of them. So we got let's say if we say 20, you've got some of the 22s presenting. So it's definitely 3 years, if not 4 years presenting.
Yeah. Well, I will see you there. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be like you said, one of the great things about Nuffield, I think, is it is the people, and it's when you bring all those people together in a room, it's going to be quite something, I think. Just picking up on the New Zealand Australia GB thing, because like you say, a lot of farmers do put those two countries on a bit of a pedestal. Why do you think that is? And why, you alluded earlier to that's maybe a little bit unfair. Why do you think that?
I think they put them on a pedestal because of the numbers of animals they run. I think that's it. If you look at a farm running, I don't know, one of the farms I was on, they had 5,000 sheep, and I think they had 1.5 stockmen or something like that. I think they had 2 stockmen in total because of the cattle, but I think the sheep was classed as having 1.5. I think we put them on a pedestal because of that and how they work. Australia's a little bit similar, and because they flood our market and take our money. So I think there's a bit of a grudge match there. I don't think they do anything clever. Their genetics are not any better than ours. I do get annoyed when people say we need to buy New Zealand genetics because it's better. Some of their genetics work in their country but might not work in yours. And we don't understand. We'll try and buy a silver bullet instead of understanding what they're doing underneath to make it work. The good farms are doing feed budgets every month using programs like FarmAx. Again, government-funded money built FarmAx, Farm IQ. It's privately owned now, a percentage of it is, but they have support in one way or another. And farmers don't think they're making money without support, but they do get support, but in different ways to what we do. And I think that's where some of the numbers they run, and also that they don't get support like we do and they can make profitable businesses. I think some of the things, they are behind on us. They are very much picking up the worming gun, and they've got themselves in a hole with their anthelmintics are not working. We're nowhere in the state they are. One of the farms I went to in Australia, basically nothing worked unless it was complete multi-combination of 2 or 3 different actives. We're not there. They are seriously looking at what we're doing with anthelmintic resistance. Scops is leading the way. I am a massive advocate of Scops. I think getting that panel of people together, I don't think there is any other country in the world that potentially can do that. And again, New Zealand, have put out a call for people to talk about worm resistance and resilience and what drugs we should be using. But the biggest place they've sent that email to is the UK to talk to our people. I think our scientists, I don't think are given enough credit. I think they do some marvellous work that we don't see. Morden especially, SRUC and places like that. They're doing research and bits and pieces that we'll see one day. But they are, in my eyes, being around scientists from other parts of the world and bits and pieces, they're at the top forefront. They'll match New Zealand, if not better them. So I think we don't need to put them on a pedestal. We just need to understand one or two of the things they're doing. If you look at some of their training courses, and it's one of the big things that's come in me personally out of my Nuffield, is the training farms do down there.
Okay.
The lifetime ewe management courses, the T90 courses, target of 90% reared, bits and pieces. They're paying serious money for that. And I mean serious money. You still get a farmer to give you 30 quid to do a course, let alone putting nearly the price of a bullock into training somebody to do a course.
And they're clearly seeing the value, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Oh yeah, one of the scholars I went to stay with, he's put all 3 of his staff on it, and
wow.
They see a massive return on it. Over a 5-6 year period, they've put their staff on it. And they'll go back and be retrained. Learn to body condition. It is a bit like a Nuffield, getting into a room with people that are asking the same questions. Body condition score, feed management, working throughout the year of how to get the most out of their animals. Data's massively coming into that now. Talking to one of them, 7-8 years ago when they first started doing it, there wasn't a lot on EID. Now EID is one of the biggest drivers in it, of collecting data, using it, making decisions. The industry has moved on, but I won't say we're still traditional, but we're not quite moving on in that aspect. But is that to do with size and having more money, needing to make money? It's going to be interesting if we start doing a bit more of that once our payments change. I think it has been for a long while, one of my biggest bugbears is that government will give you money to buy a nice whey crate, but won't give you any money to understand how to use the technology that's involved with it.
Meet the Farmers is brought to you by RuralPod Media, the only podcast production agency to specialise in the rural sector. We're on a mission to make rural stories mainstream and help businesses, organisations and communities like you tell your story through podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic way of connecting with your audience, whoever that might be, getting your message out there and networking with leaders in your niche. RuralPod Media can help you by launching your new podcast or helping you with the technical side. We also provide podcast training and an audit service if you already have a podcast. You're not sure where to take it to next. For more information or to book a call, visit ruralpodmedia.co.uk. That's ruralpodmedia.co.uk.
They can't put a value on that training, but that value put onto the training could lower antibiotics, could lower anthelmintics, could improve carbon by animals finishing a week, 2 weeks earlier, because we know what's happening. And I think that's what these courses in New Zealand and Australia are really doing, is just opening people's minds.
So reading between the lines, there are 2 things then that you're really sort of mentioning here. There's the idea of there's the training and development and potential need to fund that in some way the farmers aren't going to pay for it themselves. Is there a way of grant funding that training? But also, this is alluding to a much bigger mindset shift across the industry. Next question, I suppose, is there anything else that you would call for? And B, on that mindset shift, do you see what would need to happen for that to happen?
Yeah, there definitely needs to be funding on training. It's really interesting. After this last round of grant funding, I've had one of the manufacturers has given my phone number to 2 or 3 people who've bought EID equipment, not from myself. They bought them from somebody else, and they've come to me and gone, "We need training." And I go, "Yeah, that's not a problem, but I cost X. There's got to be a price." And they go, "That's a lot of money." And I go, they go, "I think the manufacturer should pay it." Then you ask them a simple question. Does Ford, if you buy a Ford car, pay for your driving test? Do they pay for your training? And they go, "No." So why should the manufacturers pay for your training on your technology? And that kind of makes them think. But I do believe that if people buy EID readers on a grant scheme, wayheads, anything that drives information, we need to build a course that the government gives them a voucher to use within so many months. So 50%, 60%, 20%, it doesn't matter what it is. But that is the link that they go and be trained to get the best out of that equipment to be able to get the grant funding to pay for that equipment they've purchased. Because we don't need them for traceability. We've proved that for years. It makes life easier. Cattle at the moment haven't got EID, but we can move cattle around using their numbers and report them through BCMS. Sheep industry, well, the markets or the abattoirs can read them and report that. You don't actually need an EID reader. So if government is funding them or funding a percentage of them, that's for production, but we should be getting something out of it. So government money for government good is one of the taglines people use, but we're just putting kit on farm at the moment. There is no good coming out of it. And it's a bit harsh, but I believe that. The amount of farms I've been on in the last 3 years, and the weigh cells are still lobbed up against the office wall because they don't know how to connect them to their whatever, or how to turn the weigh head on, or the farmer on the other week had a weigh head for 5 years, but they'd all got it all in one session because they hadn't worked out they could actually make multiple sessions. So you just got years worth of weights of cattle all in one session. So, they might be making use of that to weigh the animals to decide if they're fit to go to market, but there is the next step to that.
Okay. And linked on the mindset shift side, I suppose in many ways, these are probably linked, because if you give people the training and the knowledge and the know-how, then the mindset will shift with it, will it?
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people start asking questions. We're weighing, if you look at something that I was luckily involved with during COVID was the Morden, there's a load of companies involved with it. We're looking at doing the target selected treatment. So identifying lambs that potentially had worms off their daily live weight cane and only treating those animals. That's a mindset change, because you're not treating every single animal. You're only treating animals that need it. But again, we need training to work out the technology to make that possible. So, but once you start shifting that way, you start looking at, is that grass good enough? Is that feed right? Have we got enough feed in front of them? Because you start asking questions to yourself. If we're expecting, what is my growth rate? What do I need it to be? And where are they starting to fall? Is it worms? Is this? Things start rattling around in your head, and you start asking questions. That comes back to the training to understand what's going on. And I believe vets and everybody, especially in the sheep industry, we need to know what goes on. I learnt this through working with Leslie when I managed the farm. The more information I gather, sometimes she'd tell me it was a pretty graph I'd made and what was the point in it. But a lot of the time you would go, that actually, we can justify doing that. That makes a difference. We started shearing ewes pre-lambing. I started with 50, then monitored their lambs through. Their lambs were better at 8 weeks. So next year we did half the flock. No ill effects. The lambs again were better. And we just started like that. So we used to start by having a play with something, mineral treatments were one of my favourite ones, play around with the mineral boluses, the drenches, and what effects have we got? Looking at that orange dot on the back, I would say that group's growing better within that group. Weigh them, look at the data and go, there was no difference between any of them. I was better off doing nothing. But you start asking questions to yourself.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to training. You need the training to understand how to use the technology, to ask what questions you want. And I will admit, all the questions were at Diddling Farms, bar one or two, there would be only a handful that I asked, I probably knew the answer, because good stockmen do know what's going on. But I'd got the evidence to back up that decision.
Just a little more about our primary sponsor, Howden Rural, which is the new name for A-Plan Rural. Same people, different name. Howden Rural provide bespoke insurance cover for farms and estates. This could be for anything from tractors and machinery to a new exciting diversification venture. So for more information, visit howdeninsurance.co.uk/rural. Oh, before I forget as well, and this is just a note to listeners as well, out on the 23rd of October, which I think is either just after when this episode comes out, the new Scops podcast comes out, which is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am co-hosting that with various members of the Scops group. So, if you're into your sheep, please do head over and listen to that. Back to you, Matt. Though, what's next for you? Because are you looking for new farms, farm clients? What's next?
I'm still developing my business. It's still in a early stage, very early stage. I've got clients all over the country I work with, but I'm still doing a part-time shepherding job for somebody. Still doing a bit of fencing to balance the bills. So I haven't, my consulting side or my advisory side, or however you want to word it, is still in its infancy stage. But I believe I'm getting busier and busier, which is good. So I think a lot of people are asking questions. And one thing I'd say to anybody, if it's not me, if it's anybody, if you're looking at any of this technology, ask questions before you go and buy. Talk to loads of people, work out what they're using, what works for them. Because one of the biggest things, again, that come out of my Nuffield is that people wander into a store to buy something like a stick reader or a wayhead and just buy what the salesperson sells them. But unfortunately, in the UK, most of our salespeople have never worked on farms.
Yeah.
So they haven't got the practical insight of how you might use it. Yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm meeting some very interesting farms and some very interesting people. And I just hope what I believe there, that there is a career path for it.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling us more about your story and the opportunities, I suppose, as well, for all of this and your Nuffield. But no, it's been really interesting. But before you go, we're going to do final questions. And actually, this is a new thing on Meet the Farmers. We're doing some quick questions as well. And the first of these, which you're not going to like as a stockman, but it's a tractor one. Very quickly, red, blue, or green.
Don't care as long as it does what I want it to do. But if I want to keep the father-in-law happy, it's got to be a green one.
Okay. And if you had to choose one only, and I'm guessing I know what it would be, but what would it be? A lambing season, a harvest season, or milk every day?
Oh, it's got to be lambing.
Brilliant.
Oh, why would I want to do a harvest? I want to go to the beach. I want to go
and your all-time favourite song?
Yeah, this one I've been thinking about a lot, and I really don't know. But I'm going to slightly twist it. I'm not going to go for a song. I think I'm going to go for an artist. I think I really like Eminem and people like that. So, which is people find really odd about me. So, yeah, I get into some of the lyrics that Eminem says and bits of people. So, yeah, and I can't say a few of them on this, but when I've been in meetings, some of the lyrics really come in my head.
Awesome, love that. Your message for the public? Any message?
Trust British farming. I think that's one of the biggest things for people. Trust British farming. We do a good job, and I don't think we get credit for it enough. And talk to us, talk to farmers. And farmers need to talk to the public. If lambing time, I think some of the best things I've ever done, if somebody's walking through one of the fields, dogs on leads, we always hope this, that, and the other. But if they've got young kids, just grab a lamb for them for a few minutes, let them touch it. They will not forget that. And the amount of kids 10 years later have come back to me and told me that has a big impression on people.
And your message for farmers?
I think it's the same message, isn't it? One, be open to the public, work with them. We are grumpy, we are tired, we do long days, but we have to try and keep that smile on our face and educate them.
Keep smiling. I like that message. Recommendation for a blog, podcast, or social media account to follow, which can be farming or non-farming, the last one.
Blogs I don't really do. I'm not into them at the moment. Social media wise, podcasts and bits and pieces I'm really into at the moment is the New Zealand actually based Next Gen Agriculture for Sheep. Some of their podcasts and their hub on their website is some really good information and technical stuff on there. I know it's not UK based, but there is a lot of messages in there we can twist and change to help us. Information wise, I know you've said them and keep on the thing, but for me, the amount of times I go to that Scops website to get information off is obscene. Is absolutely obscene. Even though I know Leslie, I know people within it, the amount of times I go on that site to get information off it, to keep me up to date is, I wouldn't say weekly, but definitely fortnightly.
They will enjoy hearing that. They will enjoy hearing that, Matt. But we'll leave it there. But honestly, Matt, thank you so much for going on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're a mind of information when it comes to this stuff. So and I will be personally interested to watch your presentation in November as well.
Yes, we're training for that at the moment. So I don't know how many. I've got my slides, which are too many. I've got to work out, get it into 12 minutes yet.
Well, good luck. Good luck. I'm sure you'll smash it. That is it for today. We'll leave it there. But a big thank you to my guest, Matt Blyth. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. It'd be great to get some more reviews on. Next time, I'll be meeting beef and arable farmer and Farmer's Guardian columnist Amy Wilkinson. She will be on the show. Thanks again to Matt for today and to our primary podcast sponsor, Howden Insurance, for supporting the show. Please see the show notes for more information and for any links mentioned today. For now, though, I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great week.